Be sure of one thing: we shall get no good work done unless we come face to face with the designer and dispense with all middlemen. We should not be content to have the salesman stand between us, who knows nothing of what he is selling, save that he is charging a great deal too much for it. We shall know the workmen and they us, and they will understand the requirements of our state. When this is accomplished, we shall then understand the nobility of all rational workmanship. And in this way we shall surround ourselves with beautiful things. For the good we get from art is not what we derive directly, but what improvement is made in us by being accustomed to the sight of all comely and gracious things. And art will do more than make our lives joyous and beautiful. It will become part of the new history of the world, and a part of the brotherhood of man. For art, by creating a common intellectual atmosphere between all countries, might, if it could not overshadow the world with the silvery wings of peace, at least make men such brothers that they would not go out to slay one another for the whim or folly of some king or minister, as they do in Europe. For national hatreds are always strongest where culture is lowest. Thinking this, what place can I ascribe to art in our education? Consider how susceptible children are to the influence of beauty, for they are easily impressed and are pretty much what their surroundings make them. How can you expect them, then, to tell the truth, if everything about them is telling lies, like the paper in the hall declaring itself marble? Why, I have seen wallpaper which must lead a boy brought up under its influence to a career of crime. You should not have such incentives to sin lying about your drawing rooms. And hence the enormous importance given to all the decorative arts in our English Renaissance. We want children to grow up in England in the simple atmosphere of all fair things, so that they will love what is beautiful and good, and hate what is evil and ugly, long before they know the reason why. If you go into a house where everything is coarse, and you find the common cups chipped and the saucers cracked, it will often be because the children have an utter contempt for them. But if everything is dainty and delicate, you teach them practically what beauty is, and gentleness and refinement of manner are unconsciously acquired. But you will say, these things get broken. When I was in San Francisco, I used to visit the Chinese theaters for their rich dresses, and the Chinese restaurants on account of the beautiful tea they made there. I saw rough Chinese navvies who did work that the ordinary Californian rightly might be disgusted with and refuse to do, sitting there drinking their tea out of tiny porcelain cups, which might be mistaken for the petals of a white rose, and handling them with care, fully appreciating the influence of their beauty. Whereas, in all the grand hotels of the land, where thousands of dollars have been lavished on great gilt mirrors and gaudy columns, I have been given my chocolate in the morning and my coffee in the evening, in common Delft cups about an inch and a half thick. I think I have deserved something nicer. If these men could use cups with that tenderness, your children will learn by the influence of beauty and example to act in a like manner. The great need in America is for good decoration. Art is not given to the people by costly foreign paintings in private galleries. People can learn more by a well-shaped vessel for ordinary use. Most of you will agree that there is an education independent of books that is of far greater service in life. The art systems of the past have been devised by philosophers who look upon human beings as obstructions, and they have tried to educate boys' minds before they had any. Most of us remember the dreary hours we have spent at our books, and then what we have learned in the woods by watching the work of the artisan in his shop as we passed the door. In the false education of our present systems, minds too young to grapple with the subject in the right sense are burdened with those bloody slaughters and barbarous brawls of the French and English wars, and that calendar of infamy, European history. How much better would it be in these early years to teach children the useful branches of art, to use their hands in the rational service of mankind? Bring a boy up in the atmosphere of art. Give him a mind before trying to teach him. Develop his soul before trying to save it. In every school, I would have a workshop, and I would have an hour a day set apart where boys could learn something practically of art. Turning a potter's wheel, beating a leaf of gold, carving wood, working metal, or other such things as could give him an insight into the various decorative arts. This would be a golden hour to the children, and they would enjoy that hour most, learn more of the lessons of life and the morality of art than in years of book study. And you would soon raise up a race of handicraftsmen who would transform the face of your country. It is a great mistake of the age not to honor working men and their pursuits as they should be honored. These men have been educated to use their hands and are useful members of society, a class ever productive of good to all, while in contrast may be found the great army of useless idlers, whose costly education tends only to cultivate their memories for a time, and is now in the broad sea of practical life nearly if not quite completely useless to them. For instance, I have seen an example of the uselessness of modern education among well-educated young men in Colorado. Among others, that of Eton students, men of fine physique and high mental cultivation, but whose knowledge of the names of all the kings of the Saxon heptarchy and all the incidents of the Second Punic War was of no use to them in Leadville and Denver. How much better it would have been if those young men had been taught to use their hands, to make furniture and other things useful to those miners. The best people of all classes should be given to the pursuits of artistic industry, and everyone should be taught to use his hands. The human hand is the most beautiful and delicate piece of mechanism in the world, although many people seem to have no other use for their hands than to squeeze them into gloves that are far too small for them. The most practical school of morals in the world, the best educator, is a true art. It never lies, never misleads, and never corrupts. For all good art, all high art, is founded on honesty, sincerity, and truth. Under its influence, children learn to abhor the liar and cheat in art. The man who paints wood to represent marble or iron to look like stone, and to him retribution comes immediately and he never succeeds. And if you teach a boy art, the beauty of form and color will find its way into his heart, and he will love nature more. For there is no better way to learn to love nature than to understand art. It dignifies every flower of the field. He will have more pleasure and joy in nature when he sees how no flower by the wayside is too lowly, no little blade of grass too common, but some great designer has seen it and loved it and made noble use of it in decoration. And art culture will do more to train children to be kind to animals and all living things than our harrowing moral tales. For when he sees how lovely the little leaping squirrel is on the beaten brass, or the bird arrested in flight or on carven marble, he will not throw away the customary stone. The boy will learn too to wonder and worship of God's works more. For all art is perfect praise of God, the duplication of his handiwork. He will look on art and on nature as the craftsman looks on the carving round the arch of a Gothic cathedral, with all its marvels of the animal and vegetable world being a Te Deum in God's honor, quite as beautiful and far more lasting than the chanted Te Deum in God's honor, no, sung within its sacred walls, which dies in music at evensong, for art is the one thing that death cannot harm. The victories of art can give more than heroes yield or the sword demands. For what we want is something spiritual added to life. And if you wish for art, you must revolt against the luxury of riches and the tyranny of materialism. For you may lay up treasures by your railways, or open your ports to the galleys of the world, but you will find the independence of art is the perfect expression of freedom. The steel of Toledo and the silk of Genoa did but give strength to oppression and add luster to pride. Let it be for you to create an art that is made with the hands of the people, for the joy of the people too, an art that will be an expression of your delight in life. There is nothing in common life too mean, in common things too trivial to be ennobled by your touch, nothing in life that art cannot sanctify. And when artisans are among you, don't dishonor them, or leave them in necessity. I hardly think people know how much a word of sympathy means to young artists, who often are sustained and inspired by a word. Search out your young artists, cheer them in their race through the asphodel meadows of youth, and bring once more into their faces the proud bright scarlet with your encouragement, and in return there will be no flower in your meadows that does not wreathe its tendrils around your pillows, no little leaf in your Titan forests that does not lend its form to design, no curving spray of wild rose or briar that does not live forever in carven arch or window of marble, no bird in your air that is not giving the iridescent wonder of its color, the exquisite curves of its wings in flight, to make more precious the preciousness of simple adornment. For the voices that have their dwelling in sea and mountain are not alone in the chosen music of liberty only. Other messages are there in the wonder of windswept height and the majesty of silent deep, messages that, if you will listen to them, will give you the wonder of all new imagination, the treasure of all new beauty.